I have extremely noisy neighbours, but the good thing is I quite like their music. I think they're playing some mad dubstep stuff at the moment, and if you can put up with that in the background of this video, good. What I want to talk about today is the next step, or possibly, you know, the first step when you're thinking about building a website or having once built a website. How do you go about finding your target audience? Now the answer's in the question really, because a target is a relatively small thing usually. I think the biggest target ever in war was probably the two Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But in terms of the internet, you know, a city is quite a small space. Now, when you're dealing with, when you're running your own business, you know who your customers are, and you tend to get an idea for where to find them in the real world. But when you're looking into how to find your potential customers or your target audience in the online world, there's all sorts of interesting things you can do. Again, if you're looking let's look at the way that animals reproduce, for instance. There's different techniques, but generally they're either all and everywhere at once, like fish spawning in the sea, or they're quite specialised. So you'd be like birds building a nest and raising 1, 2, 3, 4 chicks. So that's more of a focused approach. Now when you're trying to become well known online, or you're getting your business known online, the main thing you've got to do is to identify your audience and find out where they are. I'm a big believer in going out to your audience rather than just building a site and hoping they find you. But you can use kind of magnets to attract people to your site that may not necessarily be specific to your business, but there's a kind of an overlap. So for instance, one thing that I always remember is that I was listening to a webinar about how to set up e-commerce sites, and the guy was trying to sell, I think in America they call them strollers, or buggies for babies, pushchairs. And he could have just written page after page after page on his website about pushchairs, buggies, strollers, etc., prams. But he tried to think laterally and kind of three-dimensionally. And so what sort of people are looking to buy strollers? What would they also be looking for on the internet? And one I thought was quite a good idea. He said he'd started building up different pages on baby names, what they mean, etc. And the theory behind it was that anyone that's looking for baby names is more than likely also going to be looking for strollers, pushchairs, because looking for baby names because the baby's coming along. So you've got an overlap there. Baby names are not strollers, but there's an overlap of the demographic, I suppose. So when you're trying to find your target audience, don't just think about your product. Think about other products that your target audience would be potentially interested in, or other interests that they may have. So for instance, most in England here, especially in Northampton, most small businessmen that I know of, or quite a large percentage of small businessmen that I know of, are also into golf. So if you're looking at places to advertise, then where there's golfers, there's probably quite a large percentage of independent businessmen, entrepreneurs, self-employed people as well. So it's just a thought, but finding your target audience, the first thing you got to do beyond that as well is narrowing it down. So you cannot be all things to all men necessarily online. You can be all things to your potential customers, but trying to be all things to all people usually doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because it broadens your outreach so much that you'll never really be able to you'll never be able to specialise and appeal to the person that's going to buy. It's a bit like putting together an album of music where you might have maybe a Bing Crosby track, then some Pink Floyd, then some dubstep, then a bit of Bob Marley, and although that might appeal each track may appeal to a certain demographic. Probably no one's going to buy the album. Why should they pay, you know, for like 10 downloads or, you know, on a CD? Why should they bother purchasing that? It's too generic for them. They'd rather go after the Pink Floyd track or the Bob Marley album. So they wouldn't want something that deals with all of those artists. And so it's the same online. If you can identify your target audience, really kind of nail them down, have an imaginary picture in your head of who they are, and that'll enable you to promote your site in the right way, in the right places. Worth thinking about.